Greetings. You're listening to the official Flourish Media podcast with Flourish Media founders Vivian Alladin and Dr. Tracy Timberlake. Listen in for marketing training and development tips from two ladies called the leaders in luxury learning. Get the tea on building a scalable, investor-ready business from the world's most accessible, women-focused business funding organization.
Hey, everybody. This is the Flourish Media Podcast. This is Vivian and Dr. Tracy with Flourish Media. We are so excited to talk to you more about the Flourish Media Conference in Miami, Florida, hosted by Behind the Leaf and Diversity Limited Trust.
Yes. We're excited.
Yes, indeed. And so let's talk about your audience and the different types of investors that are attending Flourish Media Conference. Over the years, when we started, we really learned very quickly that there are a number of different ways for you to get money. In fact, we like to say that there's money everywhere.
Everywhere.
Literally everywhere.
And I think that that's... Sometimes when it comes to investors, people think that's the only way that I'm going to get the funding that I need to grow the business. And that's simply not true. So we talk about a variety of different things at the Flourish Media Conference. It's not just investment funding because we've partnered with many different financial groups and things like that to make sure that you have the education that you need to grow and scale your small business with funding from a variety of different areas. But because a big portion of the conference is the pitch conversations with the investors, that's something that we do want to make sure that we're touching on.
For sure. So when you're talking to an angel investor, and an angel investor is a private citizen, it's an individual who's giving you money. You all have been investors to people, you just didn't know it. You know, your cousin is like, let me hold $5,
Right.
let me get like 20, you've invested in that person. So that is essentially what an angel investor is on a very rudimentary level. But it's an individual person who's giving you money because they believe in what you're doing and they want a return on that investment. And then you have the opportunity to communicate with VCs. So VCs are a complete collection typically of angel investors who have given their monies, corporations, organizations, and then they're trusting one entity to make the decision on behalf of the venture capitalist community that they're a part of in order to invest in you. And so those are the two major different ways. But then you also have different types of funding through grants and trust and contracts and different things like that. One of the really exciting things about the Flourish Media Conference is that every single person who attends qualifies to win a micro grant from Behind the Leaf.
Yes. Which is great. And it's something that we added in several years ago because we want all kinds of people to have access to money, not just those who are pitching, right? And that's the conversation that we have. So if you attend the conference, then you do get a chance to win that grant.
Yes, and one of the, I think, important stories behind the micro grant is we want intentional relationships at the Flourish Media Conference. And we found that as we started to get more attention and what we're doing and people were discovering what was going on, we started to get people who would want to talk. They want to speak on stage at the Flourish Media
They get like really confident. It's funny because they come in, they're a little shy, they don't know what to expect, right? And then all of a sudden they see other people, talking on the microphone, introducing themselves, feeling more confident, and then they get this surge of confidence in themselves. And they're like, okay, now it's time for me. And it's fun to watch. And we've watched hundreds of people do this over the course of 7 years. So watching people kind of come in shy, and then you're incrementally seeing that confidence grow to the next day, like day 2, they all of a sudden feel that surge.
Oh, yes. And so now here that we are working on our 10 years of producing this, with next year will be our 8th year producing the Flourish Media Conference, we know the opportunity that we're creating for people. But we also know that it's important that we want to circulate our wealth, that we want to maintain the relationship and the nature of what we've created with our tribe. And so every single person who speaks on stage, who's giving information, who's leading a masterclass, who's positioning themselves as a leader in our community, giving their peer learning, they all contribute to that micro grant. They are the ones who are giving you that money. And I think that it makes a really powerful shift in the nature and the relationship when you're attending the conference to know that that person on stage, that woman who's giving me this information, she's also literally paying me. She's giving me money.
And I think that people don't recognize or realize how valuable that is. Like our speakers don't pay to speak on the stage, but they do invest in you. So before you ever even get there, and this is something that I don't think people realize, before you ever even step into the room, the speakers at the conference are making an investment in you, not just in the time that they're going to be spending teaching you from the stage or in the master classes, but also in their dollars. They really do believe in the mission that we have at Behind the Leaf, which is to get people to the money as fast as possible.
Oh, yes, because we know growth happens in collaboration. And so what we did experience, though, last year is one of our board of directors, so Flourish Media, First Media's Behind the Leaf has a board of directors. It's a collection of about 19 women who contribute to the operational everything that happens at Behind the Leaf. One of them stood up and actually gave a grant of her services. I think it was worth $5,000 to another attendee. And that happens a lot. Before the pandemic, 80% of the women who pitched at Flourish Media Conference walked away with support from the tribe. So when we're talking about the different audiences that you're talking to while you're attending Flourish Media Conference, there's the obvious audience of the pitch judges, who all of them have either received a large amount of money, they've raised a large amount of money, or they themselves are investors or represent an investor group. Then you have the angel investors who are attending in the crowd. This year, I believe, will be the year that we have the most investors physically in the room. Usually, or what's happened in the past, is that we collect all this information, we have one-on-one talks, meetings, everything with all of our investor groups, all of our investor partners, and they might tune in virtually. They might watch and they'll say, oh, okay, I remember who that person is, or they'll look at the documentation. But this year, a lot of them want to be physically in the room, and that's exciting.
It is exciting, and I think what's the most exciting is that nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows. It's a secret. So when we say come into the room, you know, being ready to be yourself, whatever that self looks like, it's because you never know who you are speaking to. You could be speaking to somebody who has $100 million ready to invest in somebody. You could be speaking to somebody who knows somebody and is there for someone else. But the point is that having them in the room and hearing the story, shaking hands with the people, makes this environment so much different than any other pitch kind of competition that exists in the world, really. Because how often are you just gonna, you know, just rub elbows,
hang
in
out,
a very
bro.
casual way. You know, just telling each other's stories. Hey, where are you from? What do you do? And it's not this business transaction right off the bat. It really is a getting to know you from a human perspective. And then as a business owner, it really is something special.
It really is. And so when it comes to understanding the different audiences that attend Flourish Media Conference, let's not forget all of our vendors. We have a tremendous number of vendors, and every year we encourage our attendees, if you plan to pitch your business, you must be a vendor. You must be a vendor. And the reason why, I think, was 3 years in, we had the pitch segment. And it's not a competition, so it doesn't mean that because one person gets money, another person won't, or there's a finite amount. That's not the case at Flourish Media Conference. But we had someone pitch, and they were pitching a product, and then they forgot the product. They were traveling. They traveled into Miami, Florida, and they worked so hard on their presentation. They had their slide. They had everything ready, but they never thought to bring the actual physical product to show it to the pitch judges and the investors. And so from that day forward, every year, we want you to have a vendor table in order to pitch.
And because the investors are typically in and out throughout both days, having a whole setup at a vendor table, somebody could be very interested. And even for those who are not necessarily pitching, you could have a wonderful vendor table. I think our vendor tables are full for this year, but having a vendor space where you can highlight, showcase, demonstrate any of your products is just always such a great idea when you have a physical product.
Yes, and even if you have a service-based business or a product-based business, take the time to decorate your table. Really put some interest and attention on that setup, on that 10 by 10 space that you have, because you're drawing people in. You're giving them the experience of what it's like to work with your company. And we know for a fact, for example, our last year, two of our last year grant winners, one, her name is, her company name is Juge. It's Z. It's like, oh, you have to pronounce it. But Juge, she won her micro grant In addition, when you win that micro grant at the Flourish Media Conference, we gift you a list of grants.
Yeah.
Over 100 different grants that apply to women in business. And they take that same list and they apply to it based on the photos that they get at the Flourish Media Conference, based on the materials, the feedback that they get from investors. And Zhuge is a great example because she won that micro grant. And then I think it was 60 days later or so, she was in Nordstrom's.
Yeah.
Like literally, you can go into Nordstrom's rack and get her stuff. And so that's incredible. The other grant winner for last year, her name is Yara Lux, Nicole. She took her materials and all the feedback, all the things that happen outside of the conference, because we have our master classes that we do in partnership with Capital One Bank. And she took that feedback about her brand and she was in Vogue magazine, for goodness sakes.
Right. See, and you never know how far you can go just from the exposure that you're getting at the conference, the knowledge that you're getting at the conference, but also the confidence that I think that you gain, because you get opened up to so much more possibility. You're like, oh, this is a possibility for me. I can do this too. But showing up and knowing that there are different types of investors in the room, kind of, and thinking like a CEO in that way, like making sure, okay, I have my vendor table set up. I know the story that I'm going to be telling. I know how I'm going to be communicating. I have my collateral with me at all times, whether it's a business card or whatever. Just preparing yourself in advance for the expansion that can occur in a location like this or in an environment like this is really important. I know that for a lot of people, it's their first time coming to the conference, so you may go in and say, I'm just going to go in and I'm open to all possibilities. And one of the reasons why we want to have this conversation in advance is because we're like, I love that. I love that for you, that you want to just be open to new possibility. But there's so much more than just, let me just see what happens. You can intentionally decide how you want to create your future, knowing that, we've been doing this for several years. This is our 8th conference. So we know exactly the kinds of conversations that take place. We want to prepare you in advance so that you're not just coming into a new environment and saying, let's just see what happens. Let me have a good time. You're going to have a good time. Just go ahead and tuck that in. It's going to be a great time. But there's so much more other than just having a good time that you'll experience too.
So let's talk about some practicalities, right? So if you're coming, you're going to be meeting different types of investors. All of the investors are going to look for the following kind of information. Do you have a logo for your business? A visual something that represents your business. If you don't, if you have a service-based business and it's just you, sign your name. Not your real legal signature, but sign your name. Turn that into your logo. Boom, you're done. They're going to expect you to have a registered business, an LLC, an S Corp, C Corp, whatever it is. Make sure you have a registered business. Have a business bank account. What would happen if you meet the perfect investor, the perfect partnership, and they tell you, I love what you're doing. I want to give you the money. Where do I send it?
Right.
Oh my God, it cannot be a personal bank account.
They will not send it to a personal bank account. They simply won't do that.
Yeah. And so those are some practical things to have in place. Some additional things that give you a leg up. Have your social media cleaned up because they're going to Google you. They're going to look at your stuff.
Yeah.
Make sure
your website is where it needs to
look
be.
desirable. Okay?
Yeah. Look good on paper. Be amazing in person. And I think those are just really good practical tips.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more about the Flourish Media Conference, you can go to flourishmediaconference.com. Behind the Leaf is behindtheleaf.org. And all of our social media, you can go to @FlourishMediaCode to stay up to date on everything that we're doing. If you like this conversation, make sure that you share it with someone, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Behind the Leaf. Never miss an episode and subscribe to the official Flourish Media podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. If this podcast sparked your curiosity or made you think of a fellow creative who could really use these gems, share it and help them flourish too.